In California, $1.5 million gets you a fixer-upper with a good view. In Miami, it's a condo in the sky. But in Canton, Mississippi, that same money buys you a 42-acre kingdom with a private lake, a horse barn, and the name Primetime attached to the deed. So why has Deion Sanders' Mississippi mansion been sitting there, unsold, like a ghost? The internet's been at war over it. And honestly, both sides have it wrong. Let's unravel the real story. Chapter 1. The House That Broke the Internet. Here's a fun little experiment. Go drop a $1.5 million celebrity mansion into the comment section of any real estate channel and just watch the chaos unfold. Because that's exactly what happened with this place, and the reaction split clean down the middle. Half the internet looked at Deion Sanders' Mississippi estate and went, "Are you kidding me? 42 acres, a private lake, a Hall of Famers mansion for the price of a one-bedroom in LA? That's the steal of the century. Somebody buy it immediately." And the other half looked at the exact same listing and went, "Bro, it's Mississippi. Nobody is dropping $1.5 million on a house in the poorest state in America. It'll sit there forever." And look, I get why people line up on both sides, because both arguments sound completely reasonable when you say them out loud. But here's the thing that nobody scrolling past this house actually figured out. And it's the reason we're spending the next 20 minutes on a single property. Both sides are wrong. The "it's a steal" crowd is wrong, and the "Mississippi is too poor" crowd is wrong, and the real answer is way more interesting than either of them. Because this house didn't get stuck on the market because it's overpriced. And it didn't get stuck because the state is broke. It got stuck for a reason that has almost nothing to do with money and almost everything to do with, stay with me here, vibes. Cultural vibes. The wrong house, in the wrong place, wearing the wrong personality. But before we crack that open, you've got to actually understand why Deion Sanders, one of the flashiest human beings to ever walk the planet, ended up building a farmhouse oasis in rural Mississippi in the first place. Because that part already tells you the whole story. Chapter 2. Why Primetime ended up in a Mississippi farmhouse. If you don't know Deion Sanders, let me catch you up real quick because the man is genuinely one of one. This is a guy nicknamed Primetime. A nickname he earned, by the way, not one he gave himself. Two-sport superstar. Played in a Super Bowl and a World Series. The only human being to ever do that. An 8-time Pro Bowl cornerback, a Hall of Famer, 2 Super Bowl rings, the most electric, gold chain-wearing, high-stepping, camera-loving athlete of his entire era. Deion didn't just play the game, he performed it. The whole brand was flash. The whole brand was look at me. This is a man who once showed up to events in a full-length fur coat like it was nothing. And the flash wasn't an act he turned off after the whistle. It was the entire business model. Across his career, he stacked endorsements with Nike, Pepsi, Burger King, American Express, the whole roster of brands that pay you specifically because you're impossible to look away from. He literally released a rap album in the 90s. He danced in his own commercials. Being seen wasn't a side effect of Deion Sanders' success. Being seen was the product. Remember that, because it becomes the entire punchline of this story later. So now hold that image in your head, pure, uncut showmanship, and then picture where he chose to live in 2020. Not Miami, not LA, not a glass tower in Atlanta. He took a job coaching football at Jackson State, a historically black university in Mississippi, and he moved to Canton, a quiet town about 27 miles north of Jackson, population not very many. And out there on 42 acres of farmland, he settled into a 5-bedroom farmhouse he started calling his oasis. And here's what's kind of beautiful about it, and also the seed of the entire problem. For 3 years, that house was perfect for him. It was his retreat, his quiet, the place where the loudest man in sports could actually go be still. The flash guy found peace on a farm. Great story. Lovely chapter of his life. The problem is, a house built to be one specific, larger-than-life person's private paradise is a really hard thing to sell to anybody else. And we haven't even walked inside yet. Speaking of the one asset that never sits on the market, your health, that's what pulled someone on our team to the Pulse R8 Smart Ring. It reads your heart rate, your sleep, and your workouts right from your finger. A week on a charge, 100 days with the case, and it's fully waterproof. The surprise was the price. Under $40, a fraction of the big name rings, because it comes direct instead of through the retailers that mark everything up. If you're watching on your TV, pause and scan the QR code on screen with your phone camera, or tap the first link in the description. Now, let's actually step inside that 42-acre oasis. Chapter 3. Step inside the 42-acre oasis. Okay, so let's actually tour this thing because on paper, it's stunning. Like, genuinely, no notes. You roll up and the first thing you hit is a security gate. Because of course there's a security gate, the man's a celebrity. The listing literally says that from the moment you drive through it, you know you're home. Then you've got the main house. 5,346 square feet, built in 2011, 5 bedrooms, and depending on which listing you read, somewhere between 4 and 6 bathrooms. You walk into the foyer and you're hit with these soaring sky-high ceilings and a custom staircase wrapped in cypress wood and iron. It's warm. It's grand. It's the kind of entrance designed to make you stop and go, okay, wow. The kitchen's a proper chef's setup. 5-burner cooktop, double ovens, walk-in pantry, this massive oversized island. And here's my favorite weird little detail. The island is held up by actual logs. Real, rustic. This is a farmhouse and I want you to know it logs. It's a choice. I kind of love it. But honestly, the house is just the opening act. It's the land that makes this place a kingdom. We're talking 42.24 acres, a 4-acre private lake. Your own lake, just sitting there. A pool, a hot tub. And then the part that makes it unmistakably a Deion property, a barn. Not a dusty old shed. A 2-bedroom barn that's been turned into a move-in-ready guest house that also still works as a functioning stable with room for 4 horses. So let's be crystal clear about something, because this matters for everything that comes next. This is not a bad house. This is not an overpriced house for what you're physically getting. 42 acres, a lake, a barn, a pool, a custom build. If you airlifted this exact property to Texas or Tennessee or Georgia, it'd be gone in a weekend with a bidding war on top. The house is great. So if the house is great and the price isn't crazy for what it is, why is it still sitting there? For that, we have to talk about money. Specifically, Mississippi money. And Mississippi money is weird. Chapter 4. The Mississippi money myth. All right, let's kill the laziest argument first because it's the one everybody reaches for. It's Mississippi. Nobody there has money. Wrong. Flat out wrong. Yeah, Mississippi is statistically the poorest state in America by the headline numbers. That part's true. But real estate doesn't work on statewide averages. It works block by block, county by county. And this house isn't sitting in some forgotten corner. It's right by Madison County, which is one of the single wealthiest pockets in the entire state. There's real money here. We're talking executives, old money families, business owners, the people connected to the big Nissan plant nearby, whole growing economic corridors. These are folks who could absolutely write a check for $1.5 million without blinking. So the nobody can afford it theory? Dead on arrival. The buyers exist. They're right there. But, and this is the whole game, the wealth in Mississippi is a different species of wealth. It's quiet. It does not perform. It's not interested in proving anything to anybody. This is old, understated, generational money. The kind that drives a 10-year-old pickup truck on purpose and would be vaguely embarrassed to live somewhere that screams. And that one cultural fact changes absolutely everything about who's going to buy a celebrity's trophy farm. Let me throw some real numbers at you so you feel the gap. In Canton, where this mansion sits, the median home is listed around $240,000. The wider Jackson area? Closer to $112,000. And the typical house there sells in about 45 days. So now picture Deion's listing, at $1.5 million, floating in a market where the middle of the road is $200,000. That's not a house that's a little above market. That's a house priced at 6-7 times the local median, hovering over a town like a UFO. And just to make the point land harder, think about what that same $1.5 million does literally anywhere else. In San Francisco or LA, you're looking at a modest house, maybe a nice condo. In Manhattan, you're in a smallish apartment. But here, that exact money buys you a 42-acre estate with a private lake and a horse stable. The value is unreal. Which is exactly why the "it's a steal" crowd keeps screaming. They're not wrong that it's cheap for what it is. They're just wrong about why that doesn't matter. Because a deal is only a deal if there's somebody standing there who actually wants what's being sold. And here's the cruel little twist that ties the knot. The people who can afford it mostly don't want it. And the people who desperately want it mostly can't afford it. Which leaves this beautiful 42-acre oasis stuck in the most awkward middle ground in real estate. Chapter 5. The Real Reason. A flash house in a quiet money town. So here it is, the actual answer. The thing both sides of the internet completely missed. This house isn't sitting because of poverty, and it's not sitting because of the price tag. It's sitting because of a mismatch. Deion Sanders brought primetime energy into a quiet money market, and the two just do not speak the same language. Think about who realistically buys a place like this. The wealthy local buyers, the executives, the old money families, when they want a big home, they don't go shopping for somebody else's monument. They buy land and build custom. They want privacy and a place that reflects their life, their taste, their family. What they specifically do not want is to move into a house that will forever be known as the Deion Sanders place. Because that comes with attention. Cameras. Fans driving slow past the security gate. Tour buses, basically. And remember, this is a crowd whose entire financial personality is about not being seen. Buying the most famous, most talked about house in the county is the exact opposite of what quiet money wants out of life. And then on the other side, you've got the people who'd genuinely love to own a piece of Coach Prime history. The fans, the dreamers, the folks who'd give anything to say they live where a legend lived. But for most of them, $1.5 million plus the upkeep on 42 acres, a lake, a pool, and a horse barn is just not happening. The dream and the bank account don't line up. So the house ends up too specific for the local elite and too expensive for the average fan. It's not a house with a price problem. It's a house with an identity problem. It is too celebrity for the people who can pay and too pricey for the people who'd want it for the celebrity. That is the trap. That is the whole thing. And once you see it that way, you realize this was never really about Mississippi at all. It's about a deeper lesson hiding inside this one weird listing. One that applies to luxury real estate absolutely everywhere. Chapter 6. What this house teaches about luxury itself. Here's the part that genuinely fascinates me because it flips how most people think about expensive houses. We tend to assume luxury real estate is simple math. Nicer house plus bigger number equals harder to sell, cheaper price equals easy sale. But Deion's mansion blows that up. The price is arguably a bargain. The house is objectively gorgeous, and it still wouldn't move. Why? Because at the high end, a house isn't just square footage and a number. It's a cultural fit. It has to match the person buying it and the place it's standing in. And when it doesn't, all the marble and acreage in the world can't save it. Deion's place is a perfect storm of mismatch. It's a flashy, named, celebrity property. That's one identity. It's a sprawling horse farm. That's a second, very specific identity that already shrinks your buyer pool to people who want 42 acres and livestock. And it's sitting in a market that prizes the quiet and the understated over the loud and the famous. Stack those three things on top of each other, and you've basically engineered a house that almost nobody is the exact right buyer for. Not because anything's wrong with it, but because it's three niches deep. It's the real estate version of trying to sell a tailored tuxedo. Beautiful suit, incredible quality, but it was cut for one very specific body, and it only truly fits the next person if they happen to be shaped exactly the same way. Everybody else walks in, admires it, and walks back out. And there's a real irony baked into all of it, which we should sit with for a second. Because the very thing that built Deion's entire fortune is the same thing making this house so hard to offload. Chapter 7. The Primetime Paradox. Think about it. Deion Sanders became one of the richest, most famous athletes alive by being loud, by being seen. The fur coats, the gold chains, the nickname, the high steps into the end zone. His whole empire was built on the genius of being impossible to ignore. Fame was the product. Visibility was the brand. The man is doing just fine, to be clear. We're talking a guy with a net worth estimated somewhere in the tens of millions, a multi-million-dollar coaching salary, a Hall of Fame career behind him, and decades of endorsements with Nike, Pepsi, and everybody else. This isn't a sad story about a broke athlete who can't unload a house. Deion does not need this sale. He's got other homes, including a place out in Colorado now that he's coaching the Buffaloes, plus, at various points, properties in Texas. The Mississippi house is a leftover from a chapter that ended, not a financial lifeline. But here's the paradox, and it's almost poetic. That same fame, the exact superpower that made everything else in his life possible, becomes a liability the second he tries to sell a house in Quiet Money, Mississippi. The Deion name adds millions in attention everywhere else. Here, it actively repels the only buyers who can afford the place. For the first time, this belonged to primetime isn't a selling point. It's the thing scaring people off. And it gets a little sharper when you remember his real estate history. Back in 1999, Deion built a genuinely insane 29,000 square foot mega mansion north of Dallas. Bowling alley, basketball court, full movie theater, the works. Pure, maximum, over-the-top primetime. And that one? That one he sold. For $15 million in Texas, where big and flashy and famous is exactly what the luxury market wants. Same guy, same flash, totally different market. And it flew off the shelf. So, the Mississippi house isn't proof that Deion's flash stopped working. It's proof that flash only works in the right room. And Canton was never the right room. Which leaves us with the one question everybody actually clicked to find out. Chapter 8. So will anyone ever buy it? Here's where we land, and it's genuinely an open question. This mansion has spent a long time in that strange limbo. Too specific for the people with the money, too expensive for the people with the love. And there are really only a few ways out of a trap like that. Option 1. A price cut. Drop the number enough and eventually you bend the math until it works. You find the one buyer who can stomach it. Option 2. And this is the romantic one. Somebody perfect just shows up. A buyer who wants exactly this. The privacy, the 42 acres, the lake, the horse barn, and who genuinely does not care, or maybe even loves, that primetime used to live there. That person exists somewhere. The question is whether they ever drive through Canton, Mississippi. And option 3, which honestly might be the most likely of all. Deion just holds it. He doesn't need the money. So there's a real chance this oasis stays his oasis a whole lot longer than he ever planned. Not because he loves it, but because the market simply never produced the one weirdly specific person it was waiting for. But that's the thing I want you to walk away with, because it's bigger than one football coach's farmhouse. We always think the most expensive, most beautiful, most famous thing is automatically the easiest to sell. And this house is living, 42-acre proof that it's the opposite. The fanciest house in the county can become the hardest one to get rid of. Not because nobody can afford it, but because almost nobody is the exact right person for it. Luxury, it turns out, isn't about how much it costs. It's about whether it fits. So, a Hall of Famer's dream home sits quietly on the market in a town that values quiet. The loudest man in sports, finally, completely unable to sell silence to people who already have it. And if real stories like this with the real numbers behind the homes and fortunes of the famous are what brought you here, subscribe to Black Status and we'll keep delivering them. See you in the next one.